I'm Jess.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Beyond the Shelves. Hello. Welcome back to Beyond the Shelves. Today we are going to be talking a little bit about banned books because September is banned books. Banned Books Week falls in September.
Yes.
And while we're on kind of the theme of banned books, classics are often banned, and Sarah and I just kind of wanted to give you some updated versions of the old books that everyone was forced to read. And these new ones are hopefully better. Hopefully.
We wouldn't be leaving a podcast if we wouldn't offend someone, though.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, especially with these classics today.
So first, though, what's happening at the library, Sarah?
So the big thing coming up quick is the Fall Author Series. September 5th, we have Chantel Madison, who wrote The Fallen Fruit, and she's going to be here at Central at 7 o'clock. And then a couple weeks later, on September 25th, we have Austin Frerichen, and he wrote Barons, which I've read, and it's fantastic, and it will make you really angry, but in the best way, in the sense that it's really well written. But he's also local. He's originally from Iowa, so that's really cool as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like a little mini fall avid. I love it.
But what are you reading right now, Jess?
Oh gosh, I feel like August was a month for me a little bit. I just had August. I forget how much happens in my life in the month of August. Like it's like my sister's birthday, my best friend's birthday, just a lot, like library stuff. There's just so much going on. So I didn't read as quickly as I'm used to getting things done.
Really getting it like what?
And so I've had some real Libby trials and tribulations, and that's what I feel like people will relate to this. So I'm going to talk about it. But I just finished Story of a New Name, which is the second book by Elena Ferrante in the Neapolitan novels. I talked about reading the first one last podcast, and I'm fully in on this train now. I will finish all 4 of them. I do remember I remembered the second one was better, and my brain remembered correctly. The second one is better. And yeah, it's such an immersive trilogy. Like it really, and I think whoever she is, she's a great writer. She really is. So I'm all in on that train. I did actually finish that, but I barely finished it before it was due because it was due at like 10:56 because I look at managed loan on Libby and I see when exactly it's due,
and it knows.
And I read in the Kindle app on my iPad, and so I was like reading before bed being like, I'm gonna finish it. I fell asleep, but conveniently had the book still open. So when I woke up to a terrible thunderstorm in the middle of the night, I was able to finish it really quickly because I only had probably 20 pages left or whatever. I was able to finish it really quickly. And then as soon as I did, it was like, you close it and it returns. So it was, I barely made that one. In my defense, that is a 571-page book, but still, I barely made it. I'm about 75% through a book called Cue the Sun by Emily Nussbaum, which is, it's Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV, so it is a nonfiction book, really great, researched, really interesting, just all about reality TV, and I am but a reality TV girly, so it's very well done. I love the audiobook. We did not have it on Libby, so I put a notify me tag like I always do on anything I search, and we don't have. And then I started listening to it with my Spotify audiobook hours because I have Spotify Premium, so I get those 15 hours a month. About 75% of the way through, I get the notify me tag that we did add it to our collection in Libby. So I put a hold on it because I'm sure it was added for someone. I mean, I'm not sure, but I would guess someone requested it. And there was a hold already. So I put a hold on it, stopped listening to it on Spotify because I was like, don't waste those hours. Put a hold on it, and then started reading We Used to Live Here by Marcus. Can't remember his last name. Sorry about that. But I'm sure I will tell you in just one moment while someone looks it up that is not me. It's a super popular book, though. It was like free, like it was like, I don't know exactly how it took off, but I was able to check it out on Libby, no problem, when it first came out. Marcus Quailier? It's close. Cleaver. I'm sorry, I'm like the worst. Thanks, Aaron. Anyways, I was listening to that. I was so psyched. It looked really, really great. It's about this like queer couple who flips houses. It's horror. It's like all right.
It seems really unsettling.
Ticks all my boxes. But I didn't finish it. I had like an hour left when I returned it, and now have picked it up on Spotify. So I'm using the rest of my Spotify hours to finish that. I'm so close. I really hope it sticks the landing. I think it's going to, but so far so good. So really I've just been juggling more books than normal in like the way that they're like, normally I'll have like set things at a time where I'm reading one of each, and not the case to this last month, but I do think everything I read was good.
Well, and that book has like 27 holds on it now.
Yeah, I just don't know how. We were talking before we recorded. I was like, why? I mean, it's good, but where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
Because I don't think book
Where
talk.
Did it go? Where did it? Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I was like, is it book talk? I don't know, but I don't think so because I am chronically online, so I feel like I know. I've got my finger on the pulse. So I was like, why? Where did this come from?
And I love your confidence in me that you came into this recording being like, Sarah will know.
I don't know.
As if she's not like backlisting everything she's reading. I appreciate you.
I do think it is for like God of the Woods, which is a book that has 1 million holds on it. It is worth the wait so far. I hope I don't lead you astray because it's got a terrible ending, but I think it's really, really good so far. It's really creepy and weird, and it like genuinely scared me a little bit when I was listening to it, which doesn't happen very often. If you're a horror reader,
yes,
it takes a little bit more usually to like get at you. So.
Yeah, or you start like recognizing the tropes. So it's,
yes. Okay, so that was my like super long story. What are you reading?
Less. Not the book. No, I am listening to Fate, Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. It has a beautiful cover. I'm enthralled by it. It's everything I wanted in the kind of like romantasy, fantasy.
It's a romantasy, right?
It is a romantasy. Because I've had a couple of duds in the romantasy. I've been like really itching for one, and I picked up 2 before this one, and I was like, nope. But I'm really enjoying this one. It's Nordic fantasy.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't know that. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in this, gods bequeath like blessings on certain mortals by giving them a drop of blood. So like the main character can like call down powers from her god. Also, the lead female has like a potty mouth, which I'm here for.
Yes.
She's just like F-bombs all over the place. Just does not care. So everyone's like fighting over her because there's like a prophecy that she's gonna like merge the clans into one kingdom. But yes, it has everything. The narrator is fantastic, Nia Yindis. I had to shout out one of our coworkers, Erica, because I was like on Goodreads scoping out this book and she DNF'd it, but she was like, maybe I'll pick it up as an audiobook. Erica, pick it up as an audiobook.
It's a good audiobook.
The audiobook is so good.
That makes me want to put a hold on an audiobook. I have a couple fantasies on deck because it's been a while since I've read, not necessarily romantasy, but I got a couple fantasies on deck. So
and so anyway, it's very good. The narrator is fantastic, and she's got like a Scandinavian accent, which I'm just loving. So you feel very immersed in this like fantasy world. I am reading the 14th novel in the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs because I love this series. It's called Winter Lost. Weirdly enough, it's also like the villain, I guess, in this one is a frost giant, which also comes from Nordic myth.
Okay, I love frost giant. Like, just in general, the like, word, like, the frost giant's coming to get you.
So I'm really into, like, Nordic fantasy right now. Not that I did that purposefully. But I will say, I mean, I talk about Patricia Briggs all the time on the podcast, but if you're looking for kind of like a paranormal, like, set in the real world, like, low fantasy, she does her homework on the folklore from like all over the world. So like every book is a different, generally folklore or paranormal from different cultures. So that is what I'm reading right now. Speaking of Libby, though, it's due back tomorrow, and I have like 100 pages left. Oof. Luckily, Franklin has a copy, so I put the hard.
I was ready with Story of a New Name. I have a whole like waiting, being like, just in case I didn't finish it, which I barely did. I was like so close. I do have the next one checked out right now, so I was ready to go right into it.
So I'm really fantasy heavy right now. I'm not reading a romance, and all of these romances are just sitting on my nightstand. I like the newest Ashley Poston. I have the new Allie Hazelwood. They're just sitting and like glaring at me from my nightstand. Like, how dare you?
I feel that the new Allie Hazelwood is kind of people either love it or they hate it. I feel like I'll be really curious to see what you think. I've heard both.
Yes, and I do like Allie Hazelwood a lot. Her novellas are not for me, but but I just want her to keep writing in the Bride universe.
Oh, I will be reading that at some point. Just so you know, that will happen. I have to be in the right mood.
Yes, no, that's fair.
Because it is commonly on Libby as Hot Titles No Holds.
Yes, so. That's how I read it originally. Mm-hmm. And it's getting to fall, which I feel like it has very fall vibes. So this is maybe the time. It is the time. So that's what I'm reading right now.
I haven't read a good. That is romance. That is a romance book. It's just different. But I haven't read a good like rom-com or romance. I feel like in a while since. Not rom-com, but probably The Pairing. Maybe I feel like that's the last book I read.
We can talk about this later.
I know. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I saw your rating. I was like, no, she didn't like it.
I didn't dislike it. I just got bored.
It's okay. I get it.
I finally got to the latest Emily Henry too. So speaking of rom-coms, I finally.
And I feel like you like that one better than I did.
Yes,
I feel like
I did. So we even each other out.
I liked the new Emily. I liked it.
It's not my favorite, but I cried. I laughed. I made it to the end. I give it 5 stars.
You cry and you laugh and you make it to the end. Check.
It gets 5 stars. I have a very low bar for a 5-star.
I do too. I get embarrassed sometimes that I'm like give every single book 4 or 5 stars, and I see people who are like more. They have a lower threshold of like 3. You know, 3s. They're like, I liked it. It was great.
Yeah.
And like I'm like that's my 4. Like, meh, it's a good read. I'm glad I read it. You know, like. Anyways. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Banned Books Week, because that is a big thing that happens for libraries, for everyone, for all people, I feel like, in the month of September. This year it is September 22nd to September 28th. Banned Books Week was launched all the way back in 1982 in response to like the surge in book challenges in libraries and bookstores and schools, which is funny. This is information from ALA, but it's funny that they like looped in bookstores there, because like we don't think about that now, but it makes sense that, you know, people would like boycott bookstores that were selling certain things. But anyways, Banned Books does it really draws attention because it focuses on why books are removed or restricted. It draws attention to the harms of censorship. That's like the main point, is to educate people about how censorship is harmful. It is almost always the last week of September, and it really just highlights the value of free and open access to information. Really, I think it always brings together like the whole book community for the most part. Librarians, booksellers. When I worked at Half Price Books before I was a librarian, we did a huge Banned Books Week display. It was like my favorite time of the year because I got to do something like fun and artistic and like cool. But so it just brings together everyone, readers too, if I didn't say that, because it just brings together everyone to share the support, I guess is the best way to put it, to support the freedom to read, because that is the whole point. Really. The number of titles that were targeted in 2023 surged 65% from 2022, which is like, I knew that it just was getting worse and worse and worse. But 60, I remember how bad it was in 2022, because they always take data from the year, obviously previously. But man, it is the highest that has ever been documented by the Office of Intellectual Freedom at ALA in more than 20 years of tracking. There were over 4,000 unique book titles that were targeted for removal from schools and libraries, which again tops the previous high of around 2,500. So not doubled, but like, yikes. Yeah. That is like coming up on that. And the worst part is, I feel like this is the worst part to me, is that most of what's banned are titles that represent the voices and lived experiences of LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC individuals. So that's like 50% of the books that are targeted, which is not great. So really, banned books are beneficial because they help you like see other people's stories.
Yes.
And it's wild to me that that is a bad thing and should not be accessible.
Or seeing yourself in those stories as well.
Windows and mirrors.
Windows and mirrors. I always want to say windows and doors, so I'm glad you said it, because I'm like, that is not the phrase.
Because you look through the window and then you look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, I know, it makes sense. I just don't remember. Windows and doors. Windows and walls. I don't know, man.
I'm not going to sing. I'm not. I could sing right now, but I'm not.
That's why I didn't.
But yeah, it's just the time of year. We should always be aware of this. We do talk about it a lot actually on this podcast, but it specifically is a time to be more aware of how you can become involved, how you can basically help to promote intellectual freedom and anti-censorship ideals. So we really like to bring a focus on it in the library during the month of September too.
Yes. And it's hitting close to home right now, as we've also talked about on previous podcasts. But there's been an update. Last time we talked, there was an injunction on the book banning law that had gone through the Iowa Senate and House. But in August, the appeals court overturned the temporary block on the ban, which now allows the states to enforce the restrictions of books in schools. This hasn't stopped the lawsuits. It's just been brought back down to the district court. But however, now schools do need to start pulling books in order to stay within the law. There are still almost no guidelines.
A really clearly written law that states exactly what should be taken out.
So not only does the law seem vague, teachers unfortunately can be potentially penalized for breaking said vague law. So there's a lot going on. As of the last thing I could find in the register, and it was a little bit older of an article, 3,400 titles have already been pulled from school shelves.
I don't like that.
And then we're not the only state that's happening.
No.
Utah has passed one of the most restrictive book banning measures in the country right now. I deep dived into this one. The big things there is, like, if a book is banned by 3 school districts, it's pulled from every school district in the state. That's
wild. Yeah. That is wild. Like...
And also, once a book has been pulled, it can't be, like, sold or distributed in any way. So the schools essentially can either, like, store it or throw it away. I'm guessing. That's a guess. But I don't know what you do with a book that you can't sell or give away.
You recycle it.
Yeah.
That's it. It no longer exists.
This law also starts working retroactively. So 13 books have already been banned in Utah specifically. The one upside, I guess, to this ban is there's, like, the schools have very specific guidelines. I had the list in front of me. One that I find the funniest and all this is that Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas has been pulled from the Throne of Glass series. So it's number 5 in that series, but only number 5 in that series.
Only number 5.
Only number 5.
Just 5.
So theoretically, books 1 through 4, and then I don't know, are fine. You can read up to them, and then, like, skip, and then, like, 6 through, like, 8. There's, like, I don't know, there's 7 or 8 in that series. But the average age of the books getting pulled are from 2013. So they haven't become an issue until now. So anyway, there's a lot going on. I unfortunately don't foresee this changing in other states. There's quite a few people suing the state of Iowa right now, so we'll see. I mean, the Iowa like teachers union,
those big authors, like huge names, publishers and authors.
So individual students. As well, so it'll be interesting to see what comes of it now that it's come back down to the district court again. Fun times.
Yeah, ban books.
Ban books.
So yeah,
So that's what's going on kind of with banned books right now.
Yeah, and we will keep you, we got our book bulletin at the end, so as news comes out, we'll keep you all posted if you're not already paying attention. But it is a good time to remember this is something you should pay attention to year round. Yeah. So because censorship is no bueno. It is not good. So yeah, we are going to kind of talk about updated classics. I know I said that at the top, but I had the idea that maybe some of those old antiquated books that are commonly banned, giving them a more updated, more diverse counterpart that you could read if you hated the book or B liked the book. I don't know. Which, like, if you hated one book, maybe you would like the modern one. I don't know. The first one that I'm gonna go with is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I think instead of reading that, I mean, I shouldn't say instead, but if you liked it or disliked it, you should read Normal People by Sally Rooney, which is also a very polarizing book, actually. Now that I think about it, because they're both stories about two people in love who are separated by social status or money and social status. Both Jay and Daisy in Great Gatsby and Marianne and Connell in Normal People. They basically is that, like, not loving each other is not enough to make an actual romance work. Because it is, like, Normal People is a little more about social status and Gatsby is a little more about, like, money. But there are so many similarities in that Normal People, like, kind of modernizes that idea and puts it into, like, the current times. So it is a really great book. I really enjoyed Normal People, and I would recommend it instead of The Great Gatsby.
Did you like The Great Gatsby when you read it originally?
Okay, so what I like about The Great Gatsby is I think there are some, like, excellent, like, snippets of writing. Is what I'm gonna say. like the writing, right? So, like, not the story necessarily, but how that book, the ending line, how it's beautiful. So there's little parts. I don't have super strong feelings either way. I have never seen the movie adaptation.
I really enjoy the movie, the Leonardo DiCaprio one. Yeah. I actually really enjoy it, but mostly for the music, honestly.
Yeah.
It's my husband's, like, favorite, like, classic novel, so I've read it twice, unfortunately.
How do you feel about it?
I didn't like it. Yeah. All it was, like, this dude moping around for this girl. Like, that's what I got out of it. I know there's more to it than that. And
just moping
around, looking at that green light.
No, it is.
You have so much money, my man.
I do think there are worse offenses in, like, being sexist or racist or not diverse, but Great Gatsby is not the worst offender. But I do think that Normal People is a better modern counterpart, even though she does not use quotation marks, and that drives people crazy. It doesn't drive me crazy.
I have not read Normal People only because multiple people have read it and they were just like, you won't like it, Sarah.
I don't think you would either. Yeah. But the TV show is great also. Just when we're talking about adaptations, I loved the TV show too. That's what actually got me to finally read the book is I started the TV show and I was like, wait, I like this so much I gotta read the book first. So yeah, Normal People by Sally Rooney.
Well, my first pick is one that I hated with a burning passion when I read it in high school, and that's Lord of the Flies by William Golding.
Why did you hate it? Do you have was it the story? Was it the writing? Was it...
To be fair, it's been a while because it's high school, right? Yeah. For me, it was the stories. It's like, and I wrote this here, if boys will be boys, like that phrase, if that was the book.
Oh, they're so mean. It's
pretty bad. Is Lord of the Flies. And I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Libba Bray wrote a female, like, counterpart to that, which is not even the, like, new book I'm going to, like, talk about, but that one's called Beauty Queens, so if you don't know the premise, it's, like, it's during a war, they don't name it. They're trying to save these, like, high school, private school boys on a plane to somewhere safer. They end up crash landing on an island, and then the boys essentially, what starts out as, like, fun for these, like, young boys turns into, like, murder and hierarchy and chaos and
brutality.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Basically all your worst urges like come to fruition. And Libba Bray has like the counterpoint to that, and that is not. I'm like, as a woman, I like to be like, yeah, we're super organized. Like it's all these beauty queens that end up crash landing.
We'd be fine on the island.
But like Yellow Jackets is also a TV show that exists, so like you can't completely say. But no, I think for me is also like if I remember correctly, with Lord of the Flies that. I feel like the author gives a lot of leeway for these boys making really terrible decisions. Because again, boys will be boys.
Yes.
Boys will be boys. So anyway, that is the classic. I hate it very much. Anyway, and so the like more modern update I picked was called String Follow by Simon Jacobs. This is also, I've not read it myself because it's horror. But it's very divisive on Goodreads. People love it or they hate it.
Those are my favorite books to read, honestly.
Yeah, this actually kind of like I feel like I might convince you to read it.
It might happen.
Because it's set in like suburban Ohio, where a supposed malevolent force targets this group of kids, and all of their like worst urges come to pass because of this malevolent force. So it's sinister. They start exploiting each other, and it's very eerie. But it much like Lord of the Flies is this kind of like end of innocence trope.
Yeah, that's like the whole. I feel like that's the whole point of that book. A little bit.
Yes,
it's just like boys will be boys, but actually they're not children anymore.
Yes, they're not children anymore. Like regardless of the age, like this transition from childhood to adulthood and kind of the worst of circumstances. But what happens when you transition to the adulthood while all of your like base urges are also at the forefront? So String Follow, Simon Jacobs. I don't know if it's. I was also really scared of Lord of the Flies. I will be honest about that.
I think it's scary. Well. I think it's like a genuinely like frightening tale.
Yes,
especially if you're reading it younger when you're the like age of the protagonist. You're like, this doesn't seem great.
Yes.
I don't want to crash land on an island and have my glasses stolen. And anyways.
Yeah, and like a head of a pig. I don't know. There's just like a lot.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
So anyway, that's my choice for pick something else.
The next one I'm going to talk about is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which I actually like this story.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
It's like just weird. That's why I like it, because it is just a very strange story about a man who literally transforms into a bug, commonly thought of as a cockroach, but that never, I don't think is ever explicitly said, but it is just a man who wakes up one day as a bug and freaks everyone out pretty bad. It's basically the story.
I have not read it. Is it like the size of a normal bug? No, he's like
I believe it's like a man-sized bug. But also, it's been a long time since I've read it, but I'm pretty sure it's a man-sized bug. So I'm going to say that a modern read-alike to that is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, which was written a couple years ago and is also being adapted into a movie, which I'm very excited about. But they're both kind of about metamorphosis. So while Franz's book is about someone turning into a cockroach, Yoder's novel really focuses more on like the violent realities of becoming a mother, and it just, you know, like how kind of feral it is at sometimes, and especially those like I think what that book focuses on is like really those postpartum days, like when you are just maybe in Night Bitch, not necessarily, her partner isn't very supportive. She's trying to figure out like how to like make this all work, you know, and just it becomes a little absurd as she like feels like she's changing into a dog. I don't feel like I haven't said that yet.
No.
But she feels like she is turning into a dog. And like I love that in that book particularly, there's like she goes to the library story time and she thinks that all the moms are also different dogs too. Which again, it's an absurd book in some ways. It's very serious in some ways, and I think that's how it really matches up to Metamorphosis. I actually recommend reading both.
And I will say, I've not read Night Bitch, but as someone who is not that far removed from being postpartum,
Right.
I can relate.
Yeah.
To that absurdist. I remember even like my husband put the Chemex like coffee.
Yep.
Where the bottles go, and then I went to move it, and I dropped it, and it broke everywhere, and then I cried for like 30 minutes. It's the thing of like not knowing who you are.
Yes.
Like for a while.
For a chunk of time.
For a chunk of time.
And as someone who is not a mother, I feel like this book does an excellent job of really just kind of distilling those like weird experiences that I have not had, and makes it more like, you know, motherhood is often thought of as like, you know, this beautiful, shiny thing where like you're like this nurturing, caring mother, and sometimes you're just a feral dog.
That is so accurate. I have one of my best friends is about to have her child here like any day now, and all I can think of is like, don't listen to this podcast. Don't
Maybe not.
Don't
Maybe
listen,
not.
Not this one. Not yet.
It's really good though, and I'm super psyched about it. I think this fall is when the movie's coming out. Maybe I could be wrong, but it's Amy Adams is playing the lead character, and I'm just really intrigued to see how they take like how kind of absurd this book is in some ways. I don't know a better word to describe it, because it's very serious, but it is also a book about a woman turning into a dog. Yeah. You know, like feeling like she has fur growing on the back of her neck. All right. Which, you know, in Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa, the main character, turns into a bug. So that is my read-alike for Metamorphosis.
The next like classic I picked is another one that I had to read in school, and I didn't like loathe it like Lord of the Flies, but I didn't like it, and it's Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Yeah, not for me. Some of it is like, I think that like the connection, especially like 16-year-old white girl at private school in Iowa, like is not connecting to like two nomadic farmers.
Yeah.
In
what?
like, yeah.
You can't relate to that?
Yeah, during the Dust Bowl. But anyway, so it wasn't a loathing, but I remember reading that book and being like, I just don't care. And I debated between this book and Flowers for Algernon by Danielle Keyes, which I actually really did like, because both books have a character with intellectual disabilities in it. I don't know if you don't know the like premise of Flowers for Algernon, because a lot of people didn't have to read that in school, and I did. Is he has an intellectual disability? There's like some sort of science experiment that essentially ups his IQ, but at no point do they discuss like his intellectual disability, and I don't think he's very good light. So I decided not to pick that one, but I feel like it's worth being touched on. That like I think a lot of these classics also don't do a good job about talking about intellectual disability at all, because I think that comes up in Of Mice and Men as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, with Lenny.
Yes.
Because in Of Mice and Men, George and Lenny are nomadic farmers, and their goal is to have some actual farmland of their own and kind of live in this kind of found family situation. Without giving too much away, it doesn't
pan out.
Does not pan out.
I guess that's giving it away.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. But the like modern read-alike, and I totally stole this from Franklin's book display, but it is very accurate, is The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris.
It's a great book.
Which, it's two parallel stories, but the one that is most connected and most like Of Mice and Men is about two brothers, Prentice and Landry, who are freed during the waning days of the Civil War. And they seek refuge on this homestead as farmers, farming the land of the Walkers. And then there's a parallel storyline, but I think it again shows, though they are brothers, kind of this found family, and just trying to make your way in the world in what could, for most people, it could be considered like a simple life, but is everything to all of these men along the way, just trying to get their little piece of ownership. And in Sweetness of Water, the brothers are trying to find their mom.
Yes. It is, I think if you have any interest in Reconstruction era, the South particularly, but the whole, country, that's a great book for that. It really, I learned a lot when I read it, but I think it's a great modern take on that kind of found family, even though they are family trope. Mm-hmm. My next one is the oft banned 1984 by George Orwell, which I don't have strong feelings either way about, is what I'm going to say about that book.
That's how I feel about that book.
Like, I'm just like, yeah, it's a book.
I am a huge fan of Orwell's short stories. And
Same.
Yeah. And so 1984 is kind of a bummer compared to short stories.
Yeah. You're like, well, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever. So my modern read-alike is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adejei-Brenna, which you've definitely heard me talk about on this podcast before. But this quote from the Washington Post, I think does a really good job of why they both are connected. They present this dystopian vision that's so illuminating, that's so eye-opening, that's so real, that it permanently shifts our understanding of who we are and what we are ultimately capable of. And I think that just nails both of those books on the head. 1984 is a little bit more about war where peace is freedom, or where war is peace and freedom is slavery. And there's Big Brother, which does definitely play into Chain Gang All-Stars. It's a little more about survival, but Chain Gang All-Stars is basically a modern dystopian novel.
Or as our producer calls it, a sports book.
It's a modern dystopian novel about people fighting to the death in a publicized arena. So people are watching this on TV. So it's not necessarily Big Brother is watching. Big Brother does control, the government controls this operation, but you are basically rooting sports teams for these prisoners to kill each other in public settings. So they're both equally brutal. There are lots of parallels, but I do unfortunately think Chain Gang All-Stars is a little more applicable is the wrong word, but is more a modern eye-opener.
And because it is modern, right?
Yeah.
I think
it's more possible, which sounds scary, but it's just the truth.
I will point out, though, as much as we kind of poo-pooed on 1984 a little bit, the term Big Brother, though, as a colloquialism, is so permeated throughout our language. So at the very least, Big Brother, you know exactly what you're talking about. And that comes from 1984. And
it's funny because the TV show Big Brother, that is parallel to Chain Gang All-Stars in the way that these people not only are fighting to the death, I'm saying these people, it is prisoners, it is inmates, people who have been convicted of crimes are fighting to the death, but they're also being watched 24/7. You can stream what's happening in their lives, like a reality show. So it is very Big Brother-esque. We are reading it for my book club at Franklin this month. I'll be really excited to hear what my book clubbers have to say about it, because it is an intense read. But so is 1984. And I guess if you think about reading it at that time, they both have those parallels of being of their time.
Yes,
for
very
sure.
Pertinent to the current events of their time.
So yeah, I think read both of those.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
I know I said that Lord of the Flies is the worst book I've ever read.
Oh, gosh.
But I think this one beats it.
It's pretty bad.
So, as you probably can tell, I am a very type A and a rule follower. Just how I live my life. And Moby Dick by Herman Melville, I think, is the only book in my undergrad that I did not finish.
So bad.
It's so bad. And I loved that class. American Gothic, so a lot of antebellum reading. This was one of them, and I read about half of it, and I was like, no, I think I can write a paper on the front half of this book.
And I'm sure you did.
I did. But it is one giant allegory about a whale that may or may not exist. and a man's obsession into madness trying to catch that whale. There's a whole chapter about knots. That's when I finally stopped it. I was like, I just read an entire chapter about knots, and I can't tie a knot any better than when I started this chapter.
So
I'm done.
No.
I will say the parts that are interesting I think are about whaling has become like a dying profession, and it's really changing people's way of life, which is also feeding to Ishmael. Madness, as he's like trying to get like this final score with this whale that he hates for some reason.
Another like in the lexicon, call me Ishmael.
Yeah,
I feel like it's like very much people know that.
So my modern read-alike for Moby Dick is The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. Which has very little in common to Moby Dick, except for the fact this kind of like obsession to find a maybe mythological creature. But the Essex Serpent is set in London in the 19th century, and people looking for this serpent. It tests their, faith in each other, faith in their society, faith in their faith, as they go looking for this serpent. It's also a TV show now, so if you don't want to read it, you can just watch it.
It also has a really beautiful cover. It's been on my TBR forever. Because of the cover, I picked it up forever. I'm probably when I was working in the bookstore, honestly.
Wow.
Not to continually bring up the bookstore on this podcast.
Did you work at a bookstore?
Did I work at a bookstore? I did.
Yeah.
But it was so pretty. It's such a pretty. It's like, and I think it's like the paperback is like raised. But yeah.
I think you're right.
Because I will judge a book by its cover.
No, I want to point out that I never bring up the fact that I used to like wash dishes for a kitchen. So I'm just saying. I have old jobs too.
Hateful. Okay, so the next book we're going to talk about, instead of being mean to me, the next book we're going to talk about.
The only reason people listen.
Yes, it's true. Is the next book we're going to talk about is I'm going to talk about is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and I think you should read Martyr by Kaveh Akbar instead. They are both really character-driven, reflective novels. They're both about really complex male-identifying main characters. They are not similar in storyline or plot at all, but I do feel like both books you kind of get in each of their heads, like in a way that is similar. So I know that Martyr, I've talked about it. Kaveh was a avid author. Like, I know you've heard about this book, and I know a lot of you have read it. But if you haven't, here's like your chance to just put it back in your little brain. I do think that Cyrus as a main character is a little more likable than Holden Caulfield, because he is terrible. Even though Cyrus isn't really that great either. But they're just he's kind of just like a messed up millennial hero. I feel like a little bit.
And I am one of the few. I've not read Martyr, but I can speak to Catcher in the Rye. I think I'm a plot girly, and so the fact that it's just like Holden now walking around,
stream of consciousness.
Oh my god! I was like, dude, get a job. Like,
dude, get a job.
Wash some dishes.
It has been a really long time since I've read it, but I do. It does hold a little special place in my heart, because the copy I read was my mom's annotated copy from high school, which I thought was just kind of lovely it wasn't overly annotated, but it was fun to just like read her notes and kind of know what she was thinking at a very different time than when I was reading that book.
Were her annotations anything like mine growing up, where I was like,
100%. Not all of them, but like, yes. Like,
I picked some up from undergrad.
This is good.
Yeah. And I was like, Sarah, how are these helpful?
Oh gosh. But yeah, I do think Catcher in the Rye has some merit. It's not the best book by any means. I think Martyr is way better. But yeah. That's what I'm gonna say about that.
The next book I'm gonna talk about I actually enjoyed, and I promise you I do enjoy classics.
We do. I know. I feel like we're like meh.
One or two. But I was like, it's not as fun to talk about. I was like, yes, I liked that. Let's move on. Yeah. No. But To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee is the classic. I picked it because it is often banned, but it's also, I feel like, one of the most like assigned classic. when talking to people. This is all anecdotal. Like, I have absolutely no stats.
I think you're totally right. I feel like if all the books on this list, that's the one that most people have read.
Or at least I've been like forced to read. Yes. I feel like Catcher in the Rye is like a close second.
Yes.
But as you probably know, if you had to read it in school or just read it because you wanted to, it's about a trial of a black man in the South in the 60s who is wrongly accused of a violent crime. But the story itself is told through the eyes of the lawyer's young daughter who takes on the case. And the like modern retelling, which I thought everyone had read, but apparently Jess is not.
Nope.
Is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Because they both center around this kind of like roots of human behavior, basically and mostly on a societal level. Because like Where the Crawdads Sing is also based around a trial, but it's of this who they call the Marsh Girl, but Kaya, who is kind of lives a hermit life that was a little bit forced upon her. And then a murder happens. She's charged with the crime, and then because everyone only knows her as Marsh Girl, all of those biases come into the trial as well.
Does sound familiar.
Yeah. But it not only this trial based on biases, because it's also set in the South, it just has this like same feel as well. I mean, they call her Marsh Girl, but it's like the wet heat of being in like the South as you like go through this book. Like the setting is such an intricate part of the books as well. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes,
it's a good book.
Yeah, I wouldn't put one over the other in this case. Read both. Read them all.
My next pick is Walden by Henry David Thoreau, which is Walden is fine to me. I like Civil Disobedience better, which they come together. Obviously, no surprise to anyone who knows me. But they often are like together in like books, like because Civil Disobedience is just like a smaller. But anyways, I like literally have a Thoreau quote tattooed on me from that says all good things are wild and free. So I'm not a hater, but I think of it is like it's the same thing. It's like cumbersome writing. It's like hard to like really get into unless you are super into transcendentalism, which also should come as no surprise that was something I was interested in at one point. I think the modern read-alike is pretty much anything by Mary Oliver. I didn't want to go full avid authors, but A Comfort of Crows is another one that's really good too. But Upstream, particularly by Mary Oliver, which is her essays, not her poetry, I think is a really great modern way to look at kind of like the world around you. Nature is a hallmark of both of these books. I think Upstream is a little more like about the pleasure of labor and like the curiosity of the world that surrounds her. I mean, I feel like everyone has heard at least one line from a Mary Oliver poem, whether you know it or not. But she really like reflects on like thinkers of the past. It's like a very reflective and nature-based essay collection, where Thoreau focuses a little bit more on like personal freedom and individualism and like all those like tenets of the time.
So I'm just like huffing over here, and that's why she's laughing. She's laughing at me because I have thoughts and feelings about Thoreau, less about Walden.
Yes, Oliver's Upstream is way more accessible and interesting to modern readers, while it just kind of upholds some of those same things. So that is my take on Walden. Sarah loves Walden. She loves Thoreau.
Thoreau's mommy did his laundry.
Correct.
And so I can't get away from the fact that he was like, live on the land, personal freedom. And then like his mom came and got his laundry every week.
Correct. All good things are wild and free. Are you sure, sir?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Is your laundry wild and free? Sorry.
Watch the TV show Dickinson. They do a great bit. John Mulaney plays Thoreau. It's so funny.
I legit just looked up that clip again while we were like getting ready for this podcast because I really wanted to see it. Dickinson on Apple TV. I think it's like Station 11 for us. It's like another. Yes. I will talk till I cannot talk anymore about how great that show is. And if you liked Bridgerton, It's not the same.
I think this is a terrible recommendation.
No, I feel like stop. I feel like it has like those like that modern, like the modern.
Yes.
I'm saying like if you like the modernization of a classic.
Okay, I'm back on board.
Yeah,
I'm back on board.
That is for you. It is not the same at all, and like those like the classic romance tropes, etc. But it takes a lot of modern twists on Emily Dickinson's life, and it is lovely. Wiz Khalifa plays the devil.
Yes.
And he comes in this carriage. It's so great. It's a delight.
Yes.
It's a true delight. And Jane Krakowski is her mom, who is hilarious. It's just a solid.
Even more off note, the actor who plays the brother was in a musical called Swept Away, which I went and saw in San Francisco, and he like walked right by me, and I was like, oh.
You're like, hello.
Hi. So I just like major like fangirl moment. Some really niche stuff.
Watch Dickinson. Maybe don't read Walden, but definitely read Upstream by Mary Oliver. That's what we just
yeah, just to like wrap it up. Okay, my last one. I swear, you guys,
we're almost done.
We're almost done. But I loved this book. So I end on a high note, and it's David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. Oh, she's giving me face.
I don't hate it. I'm not a Dickens fan.
Yeah, I am. I think he is hilarious. But this is a semi-autobiographical story about David Copperfield, about a boy who starts in an unhappy and impoverished childhood, and then works his way up to becoming a successful novelist. And it's just basically like the life story of this kid. So as much as I like poo-pooed on Catcher in the Rye and Holden, I love David Copperfield. I originally read this because Dev Patel plays him in a movie that came out a couple years ago. And
I love that. That's why you read this book.
I love Dev Patel. I would do anything for Dev Patel.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah. This was also the easiest to find a modern read-alike for because Barbara Kingsolver just came out with Demon Copperhead, which is literally she uses Dickinson as a jumping off point for this book, because instead of being in London, this is about a boy in Appalachia, kind of dealing with the same thing, born in poverty, making his way up through the world. I liked this from the review. One of the reviews, it says, many generations ago, Charles Dickens wrote David Copperfield from his experience as a survivor of institutional poverty and its damages to children in his society. Those problems have yet to be solved in ours, which is part of the reason she decided to write a modern retelling of Copperfield. So for this one, my last one, read them both. Do it.
I do feel like it is like Demon Copperfield was one of the first, but we would be remiss for not talking about James by Percival Ever, which is like a modern retelling. I mean, it's not a retelling, but it's Huck Finn from Jim's perspective. Yeah. So I think it's interesting, and I wonder if we'll keep seeing that a little bit more as like kind of a trend in literature.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think that's all for all of our little books. I think now it's time for
Book Bulletin.
It's time for the Book Bulletin.
All right, so what do we got? What's our first topic for the Book Bulletin? Oh, Obama's reading list came out, which is, a delight as always to see. I do love it. He just keeps this going.
Yeah.
Like, he never stopped. He's like, I'm just going to tell you all what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, It's no big deal. Speaking of James, that is on the list as well.
Yes.
I was really pumped to see God of the Woods by Liz Moore on the list. And there's always This Year by Hanifa Durkee, which I've talked about that book too, and how much I absolutely love that man so much. He's such a great writer. I think a wild card pick on here is a book called Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle.
Oh yeah.
And I like that whole just literally came up for me today. So it's sitting on my desk waiting for me to check out. I'm super excited about that one. I don't really think there's anything that exciting besides that on the list for me. Ministry of Time is on there,
which is the only one I've read. Me and the former president do not read the same books.
Yeah, we unfortunately have some crossovers, unfortunately, but we have some crossover. So, but
the man needs to read a romance, is what I'm saying.
Yes. So, I would. I mean,
I would lose my mind, I think, if he dropped a reading list and it was like there's like 2 romances on there. I don't even need like a whole list.
Or like a romantasy.
Yes!
That would be even better. Like, oh, this is the year I really got into Sarah J. Maas.
I was listening to this local library's podcast.
And I was like, well, I mean, they make a point. Anyways, next topic. I feel like Chronically Online, you definitely know about this. Not Chronically Online, maybe you still do, but the It Ends With Us drama all surrounding that movie.
It's my Don't Worry, Darling. I can't.
It seems a little more sinister than Don't Worry, Darling to me. I have to be honest. And I think that is because of the sensitive topic, because while if you have not read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and if you don't know anything about it, I think the book is being marketed a little
like a romance.
Yeah.
And even though, I feel like the big critique is that the star and producer Blake Lively is also marketing it as a romance and not talking about what it's really about, which is domestic violence and surviving domestic violence.
Yeah. And I think that's been rumored as one of the like riffs, because the man who plays the lead is also Justin Baldoni, is also the director.
Yes.
And the person who purchased the rights to not just this one but the sequel.
I did not know that.
So that should be interesting, because like who knows what's going to happen next. But there were things like he hired a crisis PR manager where people were like, excuse me, what? Everyone unfollowed him on social media. Everyone unfollowed Justin Baldoni. There were all those interviews where Blake Lively was like, oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds wrote this whole scene. What? And then I think what's really coming out now is that were major cuts made to the movie that Blake just kind of steamrolled Justin, and like the cut was not what he wanted in the end at all, and that's where it really comes from. And they must have had a big old fight about it that no one's talking about, and that's why there was probably the unfollowers of it all. Because
they, as being the 2 leads and major money people in this endeavor, have done 0 press together.
Producer and director. I think Blake is a producer.
Blake is a producer as well.
And Justin's a director, and they are the 2 leads in the movie. Ooh, it's so messy.
It's so messy.
It's a low stakes drama, even again about a very serious topic, but I do love low stakes drama. I'm like, I want to read more about it. So I think that's been a big one that a lot of people are talking about. I'll be curious to see if they ever
make the
sequel, because it's making the money, honey. It's making money, not unsurprisingly so. It has been a box office success. So even amidst all of this, or maybe because all of this,
as Blake Lively said, bring your florals.
Oof. I mean, she is a floral.
She's a florist. Her name is Lily Bloom. The character. Her name is Lily Bloom.
That's so painful.
And she's a florist.
Sorry. It's painful to me. Yeah, she was like, I feel like that clip kept going over and over again. That was like, bring your girlfriends, and it's like, I mean, yes, but like. I mean, this is a very serious and potentially dark topic, potentially triggering topic that I feel like you should not hide that movie is about. So, will we ever stop talking about Colleen Hoover and It Ends With Us? Maybe we'll never. Maybe that book will haunt us for the rest of our lives.
As long as it keeps having a hold list, it's going to haunt me.
It jumped right back up there on our high holds list. I noticed that. I was like, LOL. She's back.
She's back.
Both the large print and the regular print. So everyone wants to read that book again.
It's haunting me. I feel like I'm not haunting it. Yeah. It's haunting me.
Okay.
I'm going to take the slightly less interesting, and we'll end with what I consider the most interesting book bulletin. Just something, because we talked about it in last month about AI. Claude, which is a chatbot, is being or company that has a chatbot, is being sued by multiple authors for copyright infringement because they used all of these books to make the AI smarter, I guess, to bring the robot army. So OpenAI, which is like the big like chat overlord. Sorry. And this podcast has ended. But yeah, so it just shows that there's so much we still don't know about AI, so much that is happening. with copyright and intellectual property, and so it's just another because OpenAI, which is the big ChatGPT, is also being sued by many authors. Another smaller chatbot is as well.
I feel like Claude AI is the one that people are like, that's the good one. I've been told that's the one I should use instead of ChatGPT, which is like a little bit like, yikes, they're all bad.
And the article,
they're not all bad.
The Associated Press article that I'd read about it, that is also like they had marketed themselves that way. They had left OpenAI.
Yes.
They started their own AI system, and
I do feel like there's a quote from that article from Publishers Weekly or Associated Press. I can't remember which this article was from, but that said it's strip mining the human expression behind each one of these works, and I'm like, ooh, I don't love that. Strip mining the human expression, AIs. And I mean, I think it's valid for that. I'm not anti-AI by any means, but this particular part of AI, I do not love that. Anytime it has to do with art, I'm not here for it. Not here for it. Okay, we have been waiting. I feel like we've been waiting to talk about this one.
I've been chatting for like weeks about this.
I know. Well, I had heard about it first, which is again wild because I am chronically online. And
I'm never first, guys. I'm never first.
This is a big old TikTok,
and I didn't know how to like say this to you through professional chatting.
Right.
So to get to it,
so this is we're gonna come back to a lot of things. This is about Casey McQuiston's new book, The Pairing, which is published by St. Martin's Press, which we did talk about. There's been a long simmering dispute between St. Martin's Press and a group of book talkers. Basically, every book talker I know is not, and I didn't realize how weird it was until after. I was like, oh yeah, like literally no one but Casey is talking about this book. But yeah, it is. They're called Readers for Accountability, the big group against St. Martin's Press. The publisher, St. Martin's Press, sent.
Oh, and just before we get to the big reveal, they are. The reason that they are against St. Martin's Press right now is that one of the publishers, someone within the company,
someone who works there.
You would know better than I said some racist, terrible stuff about.
Yes, it does. I think it was Islamophobic things that were said in reference to the ongoing war in Palestine. It's very messy. It's not great what was said. Readers for Accountability is just asking St. Martin's Press to make a statement against that, and they won't do it, and it's wild to me.
They finally did. I don't know if anything.
Oh, really?
Yes,
okay.
like last week.
Okay, then
recently.
Jeez Louise.
I have not seen what Readers for Accountability's response was to that, but I do know they finally, I think because of what we're about to tell you, and we're just like holding it in, they finally, like, I think went a step too far. A little beyond the pale, because with The Pairing, they sent a book box with their new book that included an adult toy in it. Unsolicited as well. To these book talkers that are already very mad at them.
Ooh, it's so bad. It's so bad. And it's like, what's so wild about all of that to me is that they are not blind to the fact that like people are not reviewing their books. Why are you, unsolicited press boxes, which that is how obviously influencing works. People send you stuff, Book Talk in particular. People are going to send you the book and like some theme stuff and be like, please read this, please talk about it. We want people to read it because you read it. But they sent a box with an adult toy in it and the book and a couple other things. And like influencers had no idea they were even getting this. You said that, and it's like, hello, consent, baby.
Yes.
Like, yikes.
And I don't know, like, what went through the marketing department's mind? They're like, you know what? What's going to get them back on our side?
Unsolicited.
It's just across the board bad.
It's so painful. And you know what is like, I think the worst of it all for me is that I have not seen Casey make any comment. Casey has not come out, has not made a comment about being a writer who publishes with St. Martin's. They have not said anything about this whole debacle, which is, I think, not really like them. I feel like they are generally really, I don't know. It's all so weird and wild to me that I don't get it. I don't get it.
No.
Like, I know publishing is complicated, but like, drop them. Like, move on. Like, you are a well-known author. Like, just pick up somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of them is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty bummed that they didn't say anything. They have not made a comment. So.
Yeah.
Wild. And I loved I'm not a book talker. I shouldn't talk about it. I'm not boycotting St. Martin's Press, even though I think that's all terrible. But I genuinely like that book. So, and I don't really see. I don't see the connection even there, really. Like,
no, that was a stretch.
Yeah.
That was a stretch.
That's not something, adult toys aren't being brought up in the book a lot.
No.
Is it a little more horny than her other books? Absolutely, I think.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Definitely more on the spicy side for their books, but I don't know.
So anyway, that's how we're going to end
That's how
today.
we're going to end it. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you again soon.